Okay, well, thank you all very much for being here. Let me begin by thanking Senator Mike Braun from Indiana for being here, Jeremy Ferguson, the president of Smart TD, Tony Cordwell, the president of BMWE, Doug Vanderjagt, and Vince Verna, the vice presidents of the Signalman and Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen unions, Eric Beyer from the National Association of Chemical Distributors, and President Greg Reagan from the AFL-CIO Transportation Trades Department. Thank them all for being here with us today on a very, very important issue. We are here today. Let me go back here and mention that Adam West is a CSX worker and Smart TD member from Lafayette, Indiana. And we thank him for joining us. And Adam has been an engineer and conductor for CSX for nearly 18 years. And for 18 years, he has not had one guaranteed paid sick day. And finally, let me thank representatives from the IBEW, the machinists, the firemen and oilers, and the communications union, and the rail carmen for being here as well. We are here today assembled to send a very strong message to the CEOs in the rail industry, and that is that the American people are sick and tired of the type of corporate greed we are seeing in that industry. At a time of record-breaking profits, that industry can and must guarantee at least 7 paid sick days to every rail worker in America. In the year 2023, that is not a whole lot to ask. Last year, 6 rail companies, Union Pacific, BNSF, Canadian Pacific, Canadian National, Norfolk Southern, and Kansas City Southern, made more than $22 billion in profits. They are doing extremely well. And what did they do with those record-breaking profits? Did they spend it on making the rail industry safer? And we just saw the other day this terrible accident in Ohio. No, they did not do that. Did they spend that money on improving the horrendous working conditions that exist today in the rail industry? Is that where they invested their money? No, they didn't do that. They spent over $20 billion of their profits on stock buybacks and dividends to make their wealthy shareholders even wealthier. And get this, and this is an important point to make. The $20 billion these rail companies spent on stock buybacks and dividends is $5 billion more than they spent on wages and benefits for their entire workforce. Meanwhile, at a time when the rail industry slashed 30% of its workforce over a 6-year period, the CEOs of these 6 rail companies made over $175 million in compensation over a 3-year period. Record-breaking profits, CEOs making out like bandits, workers not getting one paid sick day. Now, that may make sense to somebody. It does not make sense to me. Let us be clear. Guaranteeing 7 paid sick days to rail workers would cost the entire industry just $321 million, less than 1.2% of their profits in a single year. And they tell us they cannot afford sick days. In my view, if the industry can afford to spend over $20 billion on stock buybacks and hand out huge dividends to their wealthy shareholders, they can afford to provide rail workers with at least 7 paid sick days. And they also can afford to end once and for all the disastrous Wall Street pushed precision scheduled railroad system that has made life so difficult for workers throughout the industry. Here is some very good news, and that is a couple of days ago, thanks to the work of the people behind me and workers all over this country, CSX, one of the major rail companies, finally agreed to provide paid sick days to some 5,000 rail workers in our country. Yesterday, I sent a letter to the CEOs of the other major rail companies demanding that they do the same. Now, all of you know the history of legislation in terms of what happened just a few months ago, and that is in November. The U.S. House passed legislation guaranteeing 7 paid sick days to every rail worker in America. In December, a majority in the U.S. Senate, including Senator Braun and myself, all Democrats plus 1 and 6 Republicans, voted for this legislation. Unfortunately, the bill was filibustered in the Senate by a minority of senators and did not become law. Well, I have news for executives in the rail industry. If they think that those of us in Congress who voted for 7 days paid sick days for workers are going to forget this issue, they got it wrong. We are not going to forget this issue. Now, I hope that the companies, that the corporations do the right thing. I hope they do it voluntarily, and we're making some progress. If they don't, I look forward to seeing them right here in this Senate committee room to tell us why they cannot afford to do the right and moral things for their workers. So let me just conclude. We're making some progress. We got a long way to go. I know the Biden administration is working on this as well. But at the end of the day, in the year 2023, it is not acceptable to me and to the overwhelming majority of the American people that workers who do dangerous, difficult, and important work do not get 1 paid sick day a year off. So with that, let me now introduce Adam West, who is a CSX conductor and SMART TD member from Lafayette. Oh, no, let me introduce Senator Mike Braun. I'm sorry, Mike. Come on up here.
Adam, good to have you here from my home state. This was an easy issue for me. I grew up in southern Indiana, a place that a lot of blue dog Democrats, everybody in my hometown couldn't tell the difference between a blue collar and a white collar worker, loaded with entrepreneurs, loaded with workers, based on, I think, that kind of ideal that we should all aspire to. I decided to not go to Wall Street many, many years ago, moved back to my hometown, took a significant pay cut because I wanted to raise a family and maybe start a business. Well, my wife did the same thing. She's had her own business in our downtown now for her only job as a career. I can tell you one thing. If you treat your employees like family, if you do what I'm proud of in the lowest unemployment county generally in the state of Indiana, where you pay the highest wage and you get good benefits, people come to your place to work and they stay there over time. So it's not a complicated formula, and a union is simply when you're going vis-a-vis these huge companies. I come from Main Street. My little company had 15 employees for 17 years. And then over the last 20, 25 years, we've expanded across the country. And that same approach, treating employees like family, taking care of what's common sense. When I heard that you didn't have a guaranteed sick day, I wondered how could you get by with that in this day and age? You don't know when you're going to get sick. It's going to be an issue on keeping employees long term. Wasn't hard for me to get on that issue. And where I come from, again, most of this stuff should be natural. And if you do it, it's in the best interest of your own company long term. When it comes to this dichotomy in our country between one like mine, which is a Main Street business, where I say openly, did it 8, 9 years ago when I was awarded the entrepreneur of the area. And I said, hey, as all business owners, if you want to make life easy in the long run, make sure you take care of your employees. You got customers, you got employees, and in my case, never had a board of directors because the business was so little, and now 3 of my 4 kids work in it, and we're proud of that. When I hear CEO pay, for instance, that's maybe 50 times, and sometimes it's more than that, of an average employee, I would never do that, and I think for anybody that does do that, you're going to look at issues that might even be broader than what we're talking about here today. So I think it is, when it comes down to common sense stuff like this, and Senator Sanders said, it looks like the industry may get this worked out. That's ideally the way it should be done. When you got big companies, collective bargaining is there for that reason. And you should not have to scrap for sick days the way we all know it, with no preconditions, not conditional. So I'm hoping, too, this solves itself through the network of common sense. Looks like it's already happening. Kudos to everyone that brought it to the forefront. And I, as a Main Street business owner, will always weigh in on this stuff because it shouldn't be blue collar or white collar. It should be common sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Braun. Adam West is a CSX conductor and Smart TD member from Lafayette, Indiana. Adam?
Good afternoon. My name is Adam West with Smart Transportation, Local 744 out of Lafayette, Indiana. I not only represent engineers and conductors, but I am an engineer and a conductor. Currently, we do not have any national sick pay for any of the rail labor out here, and it puts an engineer and a conductor in a hard spot because when they get sick, they have to make a decision on showing up to work, not well rested, distracted, getting on a train 10,000 tons, possibly some seriously hazardous materials on board, going through towns of just about every town in the United States. And, or you can face the wrath of the carrier's attendance policy. Depending on where you're at on the attendance policy, marking off sick to go see a doctor sometimes takes 3 days. And if you're at the end of your attendance policy there, you're most likely going to skip your doctor's appointment. You're not going to go to the dentist, and you're not going to get the preventative health care that you need to stay healthy. Thank you.
Adam, thanks very much for the work you do, and thanks for being here today. Jeremy Ferguson is the president of Smart TD. Jeremy?
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Thank you, Senator Braun. I am honored to be here and to finally stand shoulder to shoulder with you, Senator. You have been a champion of labor, of all of organized labor, and I can't thank you enough. This is a fight that needs to continue, and it is a challenge for all of us union leaders with the railroads, both freight and passenger, because historically nobody has had paid sick leave. Adam did a very good job explaining why we have that need. Most of you that had a front row seat last year for the contract impasse that we went through with most of our national freight agreements, seen a lot of the issues we faced. As president of the largest rail union, I had a front row seat at that impasse a few times. First in September, and then late November before it ended up having to go to President Biden to be brought into law. But everybody's seen how difficult it was for our operating employees to have scheduled days off, period. The attendance policies were ramped up so drastically in the last 4 years, as Senator Sanders very well explained, thanks to precision scheduled railroading and corporate greed, that is what we were up against. So to continue now that the national contract dispute is behind us, to see this energy still coming from our senators and still behind rail labor, not forgetting how bad it was last year and not just moving on to the next press conference and leaving us behind. We are very, very thankful for that, Senator. And I look forward to working with you and Senator Braun in the very near future on continuing this fight forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, and thanks for all that you do. Tony Cardwell is the president of Maintenance of Way Employees. Tony?
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Senator Sanders, for the invite, and I'm proud to stand here and declare my gratefulness and all of Maintenance Away workers' gratefulness for your work on this issue. Thank you, Senator Braun, for your work on this issue as well. I also want to thank the 70-plus representatives that signed a letter that was sent to all the railroads moving this issue forward. So I want to thank those folks as well, as they're not all in attendance here today. So I appreciate their efforts. I am proud to announce that the BMWED was able to reach one agreement with the CSX Railroad. It's a comprehensive sick leave agreement. I had personal conversations with the CEO of that railroad, and he was willing to step out. His name's Joe Hendricks. He's willing to step out and do something for his workers. We do appreciate that he was the first to have the courage to do that, as many of the CEOs are bound by their boards and they're unwilling to step out and have the courage and defend their workers and give them things that they need. So we are glad that this issue is moving forward, and we are hopeful that all of the crafts are able to reach an agreement, a comprehensive sick leave agreement for their employees. I proudly represent the people that do the work on the track. They build the track structures and maintain the track structures. It's very physical, very hard work. They work in large groups together. They work out in the elements, and they keep the community safe. All Maintenance Away workers and all the workers of the employees that are represented by the men that stand behind me deserve a sick leave agreement, a comprehensive sick leave agreement. It's not something that should be partisan. It should be a bipartisan issue. And I'm frustrated that we didn't get it through the Senate. That's unfortunate. But Bernie, you did one heck of a job. I'll say that. We got a lot of votes, and I don't think people thought that it would get near that far. So I thank you for that as well, and I thank you for voting with us as well, Senator Burr. So I just want to show my gratitude for the legislators that have gotten behind this and worked with us. I can't say that is enough. We did feel like we were alone for a while, and then somebody championed this fight, and I'm grateful for that. So I can't say thanks enough. Appreciate it.
Look, you're grateful to us. We're grateful to you guys. You guys are keeping this economy going. You're doing the hard work day in and day out, and so we thank you very, very much. Vice President Doug Vanderjagt is with the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen. Doug, thanks.
Thank you, Senator and Senators. Thank you, everyone who's here. Good afternoon. As most of you know, signalmen and railroad workers work very difficult jobs and often have very difficult lives because of those jobs. In most instances, they are forced with the option of either working on the road for long times or working on call 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with little to no control over when their lives will be interrupted to go perform services for the railroads. These jobs make it difficult, if not impossible, for our members to schedule real-life issues around their work, like taking a child or a loved one to the doctor, or attending their own physician's appointment, or, God forbid, themselves get sick and actually have to miss a day or two of work with the cold or the flu. When these things happen, our members are left with difficult decisions. They either use what little paid leisure time they have, or they take time off unpaid and risk potential future discipline, or in the worst case, they come to work sick and risk spreading their illness to the others in an effort to not lose pay. All of these issues are amplified by the behavior and business models of these highly profitable railroads. When business models like precision scheduled railroading take over, railroads cut jobs, furlough employees, expand work territories, and ask for more with less. These practices stretch our members thin, make it even harder for them to plan their lives around their jobs. It often gets lost that these people are not assets or cogs in a machine. They are human beings, and what they are asking for is not a rogue idea. They're asking for quality of life benefits that they have earned hundreds of times over. Let's not forget, these very people just worked through a global pandemic, were deemed essential workers by their employers, and kept the supply chain moving, all while trying to manage their lives and families without the benefit of paid sick leave. What we have been and are still trying to accomplish is to bring these billion-dollar companies to the table to do the right thing by working together with labor to provide our people with paid sick leave, without attendance policy penalty, without reduction of pay or threat of future discipline. We can accomplish this, but we have to do it together, not on a quid pro quo basis, but simply because it is the right thing to do, and because it is what these essential workers deserve and what they have earned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Vince Werner is the Vice President of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. Vince?
Thank you, Senator Sanders, and thank you, Senator Braun. The BLET is the oldest continuously operating union in the United States, founded in 1863, just weeks before the Gettysburg Address. Our union is American as Abraham Lincoln and has proudly helped build the middle class in America. This year also marks our 20th anniversary as part of the Teamsters Union, and we're proud of that. Our members, I say that our members are world-class employees, and they're literally the vertebrae who make up the spine that is the railroad that keeps this economy moving. Locomotive engineers and trainmen go to work not on a schedule, but by being on call. They're subject to call 24/7, 365 days a year. Most of them never show up to work at the same time 2 days in a row. They literally work at the railroad's beck and call. They deserve better treatment than they are getting from the railroads right now when they are sick, and they need time off when they're sick. Right now, employees know you'd better not get sick. If you do, you'll be subject to harsh employee attendance policies that do not allow you to take off sick without fear of reprisal. These railroad policies literally add insult to the illness of our members. Some railroads want 30 days notice to take a sick day. Nobody plans to get the flu. Nobody plans to get COVID. And as we all know from no one plans to get shingles because shingles doesn't care. We know that from the ad. But they need to have time off when they find themselves sick that day. We definitely applaud the efforts of Senator Sanders for calling for 7 paid sick days. Locomotive engineers and trainmen need them. A locomotive engineer's work takes them out of town for days at a time. The railroads really must now accommodate their employees' needs when they are sick. The railroad CEOs would never work under the conditions they require their workers when making them choose between their jobs and their health. Right now, it was said before, we're engaged in collective bargaining on the issue, and we hope we can find a fix in the negotiation. So far, and for far too long, it's been a stubborn issue that we have not been able to get any movement. If it does not, we will continue to pursue legislation and regulation to ensure America's freight gets moved by workers who are not sick on the job. So let's get this fixed, and thanks again to Senator Sanders.
Eric Beyer is the president of the National Association of Chemical Distributors, and he's going to bring a different perspective. He's not a union guy. He's a guy who represents companies who need to get their products on a scheduled time to where they are supposed to be. And with all of the layoffs that we have seen over the years in the rail industry and the pressure on workers, that kind of scheduling is becoming more difficult. Eric, thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Mr. Chairman. First off, I want to thank you for your leadership and courage in pushing this issue forward. Obviously, it's not easy getting 52 votes in the Senate with 6 Republican members, so I appreciate your leadership on this effort, and to Senator Braun for voting for your amendment back in December. For us, it's pretty simple. We represent small, family-run businesses that move chemicals via rail, and it's critical that they receive that product as quickly as they can so they can ship it on to the end users. A lot of our members utilize rail yards and terminals around the country, and for us, it's really important to have qualified, skilled employees that the rail workers have at these locations so we can get those products, put them on trucks, and off to the end users safely. Without them, we are not going to be able to have a successful and vibrant supply chain, which we've been struggling with over the last few years. So it's really critical and important for our members to ensure that we have a continued solid relationship with the rail workers, which we have, and we want to continue to maintain that. And it's really important to recognize that according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that private entities have 7 to 8 days of paid sick leave for their employees. There's no reason why the rail workers shouldn't have that same ability. So we're going to keep pushing with you all. You certainly have NACD support, and we look forward to seeing this across the finish line where you all have 7 days of sick leave.
Greg Regan is the president of the AFL-CIO Transportation Trades Department. Greg?
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, of course, for all of your leadership on this issue. I'm lucky enough as the president of Transportation Trades to represent all of the rail unions in every craft and class, in every one of the Class 1 freight railroads that are out there. And I'm also proud that we have shown over the past year plus unprecedented solidarity among the labor movement behind these issues and behind the quality of life issues that rail workers are facing. It was a very, very difficult year last year. Let's be very honest about that. And the way it ended is not the way that anybody really wanted it to end. But if there is a positive that came out of it, it's the fact that the whole country was woken up to what these workers face every single day and how vital they are to the economics, to the economy in this country. Every single American relies on the railroads, whether they realize it or not. And when we started seeing news reports talking about what the conditions were, what the workers were facing, it seemed the reaction pretty universally was, I can't believe this. I can't believe that's what these workers face. So we knew in December when this was resolved that was not the end of the fight. That was just one phase. And we knew that we were going to have to keep this going. We knew that we were going to have to keep the pressure on through the executive branch, through the legislative branch, at the bargaining table. We need to keep this fight moving, and that's what we're doing. And that's what we're doing with great allies like Senator Sanders and Senator Braun. And we're going to continue this work forward. And I also want to quickly say the pressure that has also been coming and the work that's been happening from the White House, from the Department of Labor, from the Department of Transportation has been really helpful as well. This is an ongoing effort, and it never stopped, not from the moment the contract was imposed, not from the bargaining table, and we're going to keep it going. Thank you so much.
Okay, any media questions? Okay. Yes. Yeah, I'm aware the Democrats are control of the Senate, or I wouldn't be here as chairman. The answer is no, I haven't talked to Schumer about this specifically, but I'm confident that we will get it onto the floor. As Greg just mentioned, I think one of the things that's happened in the last couple of months because of all of these guys, people throughout this country are seeing the reality of what these workers are having to go through. And the American people are behind these workers overwhelmingly. So if the railroads themselves do not come to the table and negotiate an acceptable agreement to the unions, we are going to have the executives here in this room, in this committee room, and we surely will bring legislation to the floor. Okey-dokey. All right, thank you all very much.